Hello everyone! Today we're continuing our journey through Rome with the Roman Forum. Because it is such an important place and it's so spread out over a huge area, it will take us a day to see it. So we will dedicate this video only to exploring this wonderful place. The Roman Forum was called in Latin Forum Romanum, although the Romans more often referred to it as Forum Magnum or simply Forum. It's an archaeological area of Rome between the Palatine Hill, Campidoglio, Via dei Fori Imperiali, and the Colosseum. The Roman Forum represented, for most of ancient history, the political, legal, religious and economic center of the city of Rome, as well as the pole of the entire Roman civilization. The marshy and inhospitable Forum Valley was used between the 10th and the 7th century BC as a necropolis by the first villages established on the surrounding hills. Tito Livio and other ancient authors relate that, shortly after the foundation of Rome, a large battle was fought between the Romans and the Sabines in the area of the future Roman Forum, the Battle of Lake Curzio. The entrance to the Forum is on Via Sacra. But before you go in, you have to buy a ticket, which is joint for it and the Colosseum, the latter of which we have visited in our previous video, for which you can find a link in the description area below and in the card above. Right from the entrance, we are greeted by the Arch of Tiberius, erected in 16 AD, by him to celebrate the victorious campaigns of his adoptive son, Germanicus. And from here, the next stop is the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine, the oldest basilica in the Roman Forum. This was the largest building in the Forum and the largest Roman basilica built in the city. Construction began on the northern side of the Forum under the Emperor Maxentius in 308 AD and was completed in 312 AD by Constantine I after defeating Maxentius in the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. The building sits on the north side of Via Sacra, close to the Temple of Peace and the Temple of Venus. The color of the building before it was destroyed was white. It consisted of a central nave covered by three pointed vaults suspended 39 meters above the floor on four large pillars, terminating in an apse at the west end that used to contain a colossal statue of Constantine. The south and central section were probably destroyed by an earthquake in 847. In 1349, the vault of the nave collapsed in another earthquake. The next stop is the Temple of the Divine Romulus. Although we were tempted to think, due to the name, that it is dedicated to one of the legendary founders of Rome, this temple is actually supposed to have been dedicated to Valerio Romolo, the son of Emperor Maxentius. But recent theories claim that it was built in honor of Jupiter Stator. The temple is one of the best preserved buildings in the Roman Forum and now houses sculptures, Roman art and temporary exhibitions. It is set up as a small museum. To access the temple, you have to buy the super ticket. Via Sacra leads us to the next stop, the Temple of Antoninus and Faustina. Originally, the temple was dedicated only to Flavia by her husband, Emperor Antonius Pius. He dedicated the temple to his deceased and deified wife, making Faustina the first Roman empress with a permanent presence in the Forum Romanum. After the death of the emperor Antonius Pius, his successor Marcus Aurelius rededicated the temple to both Antonius and Faustina. Nearby we find Basilica Emilia. This was a civil basilica in the Roman Forum. Today, only the plan and some recreated elements can be seen. The basilica was 100 meters long and 30 meters wide, and along the sides were 2 rows of 16 arches. In front, we see the building that in the past was called Curia Iulia and is the third Curia, or House of Senate, in the ancient city of Rome. It was built in 44 BC, when Julius Caesar replaced the Curia Cornelia, built by Faustus Cornelius Sulla, who himself replaced Curia Hostilia. Curia Iulia is one of the few Roman structures that survive mostly intact. This is due to its conversion into the Basilica of Sant Adriano al Foro in the 7th century and several subsequent restorations. We pass by the Column of Focas, dedicated or rededicated in honor of the Eastern Roman Emperor Focas on the 1st of August 608 AD. It was the last addition to the Roman Forum. The fluted Corinthian column is 13.6 meters high on its cubic white marble plinth. For stylistic reasons, the column seems to have been made in the 2nd century for an unknown structure and then reused for the current monument. In front, we see the Temple of Saturn, which was an ancient Roman temple of the god Saturn. Its ruins lay at the foot of the Palatine Hill, at the western end of the Roman Forum. The original construction of the temple is traditionally dated to 497 BC. The construction of the temple is believed to have begun in the last years of the Roman kingdom under Tarquinius Superbus. Its inauguration by the consul Titus Lartius took place in the early years of the Republic, making it the oldest republican temple after the Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. The altar of Saturn, which stood in front of the temple, is believed to be much older and associated with Saturn's founding of the city on the Capitoline Hill. Near this is the Temple of Vespasian in Tyrus, built to glorify the name of the Flavian family, the same family that built the Colosseum. Not far from these two temples is the Umbilicus Urbis Romae, the name of which translates to the navel of the city of Rome. This place was the symbolic center of the city from which all distances in ancient Rome were measured. It is located in the Roman Forum, where its remains can still be seen. These remains are located near the Arch of Septimius Severus and the Temple of Vulcan behind the rostra. Originally clad in marble, the navel is now a derelict-looking brick core. It is approximately 2 meters high and 4.45 meters in diameter. Roman legend says that Romulus, when he founded the city, made a circular pit in the Forum. The first fruits of the year's harvest were thrown into the pit as a sacrifice, and all new citizens of Rome had to throw in a handful of earth from their place of origin. And next to the Umbilicus Urbis Romae, we find the Arch of Septimius Severus. It's at the northwestern end of the Roman Forum and at the end of Via Sacra. The white marble triumphal arch was built in 203 AD to commemorate the victory in the two campaigns against the Parthians in 194 to 195 and 197 to 199 AD of the Emperor Septimius Severus and his two sons, Caracalla and Gera. After the death of Septimius Severus, his sons Caracalla and Gera ruled together. Then Caracalla assassinated Gera in 212 AD. In the practice known as damnatio memoria, all traces of Gera were destroyed and all images or mentions of him were removed from public buildings and monuments. We are heading to the house of the Vestal Virgins, known in antiquity as Atrium Vestae. The House of the Vestal Virgins originally referred to an open area located near the Temple of Vesta, the seat of the cult of the goddess Vesta, protector of the fire in the fireplace and of the house more generally. The temple was served by 7 virgin priestesses who kept the fire burning continuously and cleaned the temple using water brought from the spring of the nymph Egeria. Above the Atrium Vesta stands Domus Tiberiana. This was a Roman imperial palace in ancient Rome. Located on the northwestern corner of the Palatine Hill, this palace was said to have been the main Roman residence of Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero in the early part of his reign. Relatively little is known about the structure from an archaeological point of view, as the Farnese Gardens have occupied the site of the main level since the 16th century, making excavation difficult. The visible remains are those of the imposing arch support structures on the northern slopes of the hills, built under Domitian, Trajan, and Hadrian. We're going to the Oratory, dedicated to the 40 Martyrs who were killed in Sebaste in Armenia under the Roman Emperor Licinius around 320 AD, and whom we celebrate each year on the 9th of March in the Christian Orthodox faith and on the 10th of March in the Catholic faith. The martyrs were a group made out of soldiers from the 12th Legion who refused to renounce their Christian faith, and after various tortures were condemned to die in a particularly gruesome manner, stripped and left to freeze to death on the surface of a frozen lake. The building that houses the Oratory of the 40 Martyrs is an early 2nd century building that served as an entrance to the ramp to Domitian's complex on the Palatine Hill. Near the Oratory, at the foot of the Palatine Hill, is the oldest Christian monument in the Roman Forum, the Church of Santa Maria Antiqua, a Roman Catholic church built in the 5th century. The church contains the oldest Roman representation of Santa Maria Regina, the Virgin Mary as Queen, from the 6th century. It contains a unique collection of wall paintings from the 6th century to the end of the 8th century. The church was abandoned in the 9th century after an earthquake buried the building. It remained sealed for 1,000 years, until its rediscovery at the beginning of the 20th century. and for a long time after the rediscovery, the access to the monument was only allowed for researchers based on an application that had to be approved. And to get to the Palatine Hill, you have to pass from the Santa Maria Antiqua church through Domitian's ramp. Built by Domitian in the second half of the 1st century AD to connect the Roman Forum, the administrative and political heart of the city, with the imperial palace complex on the Palatine Hill, the center of the city's power. With high walls flanked by warehouses, the imperial ramp once climbed 7 levels, with 6 bends between them, and was up to 35 meters high. Of the 7 levels of the original ramp, only 4 remain, but they are more than enough to convey the grandeur of the space, and the symbolic significance of the step rise from popular politician to imperial power. And at the end of this ramp, we go out to the top of the Palatine Hill to a breathtaking view of the Roman Forum, which until recently, in historical terms, ordinary people like us would not have had the chance to see. And from here, we will spend the rest of our visit on the Palatine Hill, where our first stop will be at the Farnese Gardens, also known as the Farnese Gardens on the Palatine Hill. Created in 1550 on the northern part of the Palatine Hill by the Cardinal Alessandro Farnese. They were the first private botanical garden in Europe, although only a short time before Italian universities had created the first botanical gardens of any kind in Europe. The creator of the gardens, Alessandro Farnese, was appointed as a cardinal deacon of the Roman Catholic Church in 1534, at the age of only 14. By Paul III, his grandfather, who had been elected Pope 2 months prior. He is remembered as being a collector of antiquities who amassed the largest collection of Roman sculptures in private hands since antiquity, the famous Farnese collection. The Farnese Gardens were popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, with grand tour travelers visiting Rome. If you would like to see the most important city in Sicily on the Grand Tour route, I've left you a link in the description of this video and in the card above. From here we can admire the beautiful view of the Roman Forum, as well as several other nearby monuments, the Capitoline Hill and the monument of Victor Emmanuel II. The Farnese Gardens also overlook the Flavian Palace, towards which we're heading now. The palace, normally known as Domus Flavia, is part of the vast palace of Domitian on the Roman Palatine Hill, and was completed in 92 AD by the Emperor Titus Flavius Domitianus and attributed to his master architect Rabirius. The term Domus Flavia is a modern name for the northwestern section of the palace, where most of the large public halls for official business, entertainment, and ceremonies are concentrated. Domitian was the last of the Flavian dynasty, but the palace continued to be used by emperors with minor modifications until the end of the empire. It is linked to the domestic wing in the southeast, the Domus Augustana, a name that in antiquity may have been applied to the entire palace. We are now on the Palatine Hill, which in relation to the 7 hills of Rome is the most central and has one of the oldest parts of the city. Imperial palaces were built here, and amongst them we find Casina Farnese, which belonged to the great Ordi Farnesini, the Farnese Gardens, during the 16th century. Small in size, highly regarded architecturally and historically, Casina Farnese is one of the few Renaissance buildings and the only residential one left on Rome's Palatine Hill. The Casina contains many valuable frescoes, such as those depicting the battle scenes of Hercules. The Palatine Hill may have received its name from the Arcadian settlers of Pallantium, named after its founder, Pallas, son of Licano. Or more likely, it is derived from the noun palatum, which may be related to the Etruscan word for sky, falad. We're going to the Palatine Museum, which is housed in a former monastery built in 1868 on the remains of Domitian's palace. Here, the archaeologist Alfonso Bartoli in the 1930s established the Antiquario Palatino to allow for the expansion of the archaeological excavation then underway on the hill. Bartoli demolished the neo-Gothic style building that Scotsman Charles Andrew Mills has built on top of the hill. The archaeological remains located on Rome's Palatine Hill are among the most fascinating in Italy. But the treasures recovered during the excavations are here, kept inside the Palatine Museum. This hilltop museum houses a collection of artifacts, sculptures, frescoes, and mosaics that date back long before the city of Rome was officially founded and to the golden age of the Palatine Hill in the 1st and the 2nd centuries. Also on display is an interesting reconstruction of the huts where Romulus, the founder of Rome, and his brother Remus would have lived. From here, we're going to the Domus Augustana. This is the modern name given to the central residential part of the vast Roman palace of Domitian on the Palatine Hill. From here, you can see the Fontana delle Pelte, which is located in the lower courtyard of the Domus. And nearby we find the Palatine Stadium, which was part of the Domus Flavia from the 1st century AD. The building was used as a hippodrome for the exercise of horses, and later on was used as a garden for the imperial court. Its size was considerable, 160 by 50 meters. We enter the Aula Isica Loggia Meteo, a room of the Domus Augustana. The paintings we see here displayed belong to a residence from the Palatine Hill with 2 different stages of construction. An apsidal room richly decorated in frescoes belongs to the Augustan era, dating from around 30 BC, and shows many stylistic and content affinities with the house of Augustus in Livia on the Palatine and the Villa della Farnesina. The objects of the paintings refer to Egypt and the goddess Isis. Ritual objects related to the cult of the goddess, such as snakes, vassals, lotus flowers, and roses, thus explaining the modern name. The long wall features an illusionistic architectural setting above a podium with slender columns and a central altar containing a landscape painted with mythological scenes, dating from the middle of the 1st century BC. Domus Augustana is the last stop inside the archaeological park of the Roman Forum and the Palatine Hill. But on the way out, we are stopping for a few moments to admire an important achievement of ancient engineering. A fragment of Aqua Claudia, an ancient Roman aqueduct which, like Aqua Anio Novus, was started by Emperor Caligula in 38 AD and was finished by Emperor Claudius in 52 AD. This was the 8th aqueduct to supply Rome, along with the Aqua Anio Novus, Aqua Anio Vetus, and Aqua Marcia is considered one of the 4 great aqueducts of Rome. And with this last look at Rome's glorious past, today's story ends. If you've liked today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button. Leave a like and share this video with others. And we will see you again in 2 weeks, when we continue our walk through the streets of Rome, because we still have so many wonderful things to show you, such as the Pantheon, the Trevi Fountain, and so much more. So see you next time!